We sometimes have this notion that holy people don't have suffering. Today in the Gospel, we are told that the family and friends of Elizabeth and Zachariah came and shared in their joy. And what was this joy? That God had blessed Elizabeth and Zachariah with a son in their old age. Now, Zachariah was from the priestly line, and Elizabeth was the same line as well. Two good and holy people who endured so much of suffering in their life. They were unable to have a child. In those days, it was very severe and painful and great suffering if you were unable to conceive a child. Can you imagine a couple like Zachariah and Elizabeth, good, holy people, would have been faithful to God, would have said their prayers every day, would have kept all the religious observances, and they're unable to conceive a child. And the pain that they would have been going through would have been enormous. What do people say? Oh, look, you're a priest, in the line of priests. Elizabeth, both of you are unable to conceive a child. God has surely cursed you. How could you be like this? How could it be like this? What have you done to deserve such a curse that God is not blessing you with a child? So the pain would have been enormous. But this couple was so faithful to God in the midst of all their suffering. Until the day comes when Angel Gabriel tells John the Baptist and tells Zachariah that they're going to conceive and have a child. And Zachariah is, well, dumbfounded. He doesn't know what to say. I mean, how can this be? And eventually the angel says, you will be struck dumb until this comes to pass. And Elizabeth and Zachariah have a child, and today, after all these months, the people come now to share their joy that God has blessed them with a child. But this child was not just given to Zachariah and Elizabeth for their sake. Yes, God has now, people come and see that God has blessed them so much by giving them a child. But this child was given for the world. The child was given as the one who would prepare the way for the coming of the Messiah. That was John's mission, to prepare Israel for the coming of the Messiah. Jesus said in the Gospels that there's no, I tell you, among those born of women, no one is greater than John. Now, in the church, we celebrate the feast day of saints, and all these feast days are celebrated the day they died. That's the day they enter into heaven, and that's the day we celebrate as their feast day, the day that they died and left this life and entered the next. Because all of us are conceived in original sin, and therefore it's after baptism that we receive this life of God in us. Sin is washed away, and therefore those who have lived a holy life and endured suffering and been faithful to God and been a good witness of Jesus to others, when they die, they reach heaven, and the church celebrates that day they died as the day they entered into heaven. But there is an exception for two people. One is our Blessed Mother, and the other is John the Baptist. So our Blessed Mother, from the moment of her existence, she was without original sin. So she was conceived and born without original sin. So therefore we celebrate, the birthday of Our Lady. We celebrate her Immaculate Conception, the day she was conceived without the sin in her mother's womb. But John the Baptist, he was conceived with original sin, but he was born without it. How is that possible? That he was conceived with original sin but born without it. Well, the meeting of Elizabeth and our Blessed Mother, the visitation. Elizabeth says, the moment your greeting reached my ears, the child in my womb leapt for joy. It is that meeting, the Holy Spirit connecting Jesus to John the Baptist. It is there in that womb that John the Baptist was cleansed from his original sin because he leapt with joy. So he was conceived in original sin, but he was then born without it. John the Baptist was also known as the great prophet born of women, because he, of all the prophets, every prophet foretold the coming of the Messiah. John the Baptist was the only one, the last of the prophets, but the only one who could say, here he is, he's here. So today we celebrate this birthday of John the Baptist to remind us that John had a mission to prepare Israel for the coming of the Messiah. And the preparation happened very seriously. He went into the wilderness, he fasted, he prayed, he lived a very simple life. And when he came out into public ministry, he was not shy to tell people off. The wilderness was a place that prepared him to come out and to speak to the people of Israel, to tell them that they need to change their lives and prepare to meet the Messiah. Now in these days, we find ourselves in the wilderness, and perhaps more so in the coming days, in the weeks, where we have to stay home. And these are the days to help us remember how we live our lives. What do we do each day to be a witness of Jesus to others? Like John the Baptist, we have received the grace through baptism to be witnesses of Jesus. And therefore we must then be able to live our life well and worthy of this calling to be God's children. And the better our lives lived as witnesses of Jesus will enable other people to see Christ in us, to see through our patience, through our understanding, through our forgiveness, to see Christ in us. So on this great day, where we celebrate the birthday of John the Baptist, we thank God for our life, we thank God for our faith, and we ask the Lord to give us the grace and strength to fulfill the mission entrusted to us, to bring God's love to those around us, and to show God's mercy and forgiveness to those we come in contact with. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.